WoW just took a huge step forward. This is not an add-on. Now, we've talked about this. I already know. And so has Bellular. We've already delved into the whole thing about Blizzard adding things that'll take away weak auras, which is great, not just for the game, but for the performance of your PC. If you have lag in the game, a lot of times it's because of add-ons and stuff. So getting rid of those things will be a great thing for the game. But this is taking a huge step, I guess. Blizzard's really iterating on this stuff, taking feedback, and making it even better. Let's see where things currently stand for these add-on destroying changes in World of Warcraft. Here we go.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, this is something that's honestly huge for the game. I have a simple question. Which of these would you rather play with? On one side, we've got class WeakAuras, right? You know him, maybe you love him, maybe you hate him. But on the other side, we've got Blizzard's answer to that. Their WeakAura killer, which they call the cooldown manager. And honestly, it's actually not what...
Hold on, let me see. I'm just looking at the... Honestly, side by side, I actually think this looks better. I just think it looks cleaner. I prefer a clean UI. I hate having UI shit all over my screen. I feel like it kind of takes me out of the game. I like to be in the game. I like to feel the game. I like to get immersed in the game. I feel like too much shit on my screen breaks the immersion. I actually think this looks cleaner, if I'm being completely honest.
Any of us expected, and in some ways it is actually worse than expected and maybe a little bit disappointing, but in other ways it's actually kind of promising. I've also got a truly novel experience to share. Boot.dev.
Oh man, look at that advertisement sliding.
They were there when I was in uni, man. Because there, right up, you'll learn the coding, engineering, and career skills.
It's still way too limited from what you've seen. They're taking a lot of feedback. Supposedly, a lot of people are talking about that it's maybe limited in some ways or not showing the things that they want to see, but they keep changing it. So I think by the time this thing actually launches, it's going to be really, really good.
Like you're learning to program MMO guild. It's very cool. And it's got soul, it's got sauce, just looking at the UI, the vibes, the way things are architected.
Oh yeah, and boot.dev,
when you're learning a new skill. You don't want it to be boring and dry and lifeless. That'll actually make you hate programming, and Boot is the opposite of that. Now, you'll learn Python and Go across a wealth of content covering the fundamentals right through to the deeper learning topics like, say, algorithms. You'll build real projects for your portfolio. You'll do fun things like, say, asteroids in Pygame, such that you can actually start to cook and make your own custom version of asteroids with your own game rules and stuff. And you'll avoid two massive problems. One is tutorial hell, where you bounce from place to place without a cohesive learning path. And two is those get-rich-quick style code bootcamp hell things that are unrealistic and leave you not actually knowing everything you need to know. Boot is realistic, it has got the sauce, and it's just plain better than the rest, and it's tailored to people like us. You'll get 25% off your first purchase at boot.dev/Bellular, and it's zero risk. You can browse all of their content, you can do their demos, view their materials, and all that for free, and when you do buy, it's a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Very nice.
What it is, though, is a huge commitment from Blizzard, and it's one that we have wanted and I think kind of needed for a long-ass time. And Blizzard are trying to make sure that whenever patch 11.1.5 drops, you will actually want to turn this thing on.
Really?
Okay, let me explain. This is not a massive customizable system that is designed to replicate WeakAuras. That would be a pretty crazy thing to bite off, and honestly, it's not what would fit for the majority of WoW players, right? The Blizzard thing has got to be, well, elegant, simple.
Yes.
So this is them trying to replace it by making sure that you do not feel the need to install WeakAuras in the first place, because the game actually covers what you need. Blizzard calls this a designer-curated list of abilities, and their goal is that you can turn this on and play your spec pretty much perfectly right away. No pissing about, fiddling around with settings, checking boxes, moving things to the right place. You can just go and play.
That's what I want. I mean, already, you know, when you play WoW, a lot of time, we're already looking up the meta, we're looking up our best spec, we're looking up all this shit. The last thing I want to do is download an add-on and then have to look up 30 different things about how to set it up as well. That's one reason why I never downloaded it. What's that one that a lot of people use that changes all their frames and everything? It's the big one. I never downloaded it because from what I've seen, you download that shit and then you got to watch like 17 tutorials on how to set it up specifically for your class. I don't need that much. I'm a simple man who likes the simple things, okay? I literally enjoy seeing the little griffins on the side of my UI bar, and I don't like to get rid of that. Yeah, LVUI, that's exactly the one I was thinking of. I just don't need that much. Keep it simple, stupid. That's how I like the game to be when it comes to my UI. So yes, giving me just the bare minimum of cooldowns I need to see, that'll allow me to turn off a lot of shit and delete a lot of add-ons. And currently, I run with the bare minimum of add-ons.
And
explains
I
a lot.
Class designers, they can actually count on you being able to see things because finally they have a UI that sort of functions. Crazy thought. And if its fully activated form is just too much clutter, well, you can actually hide any of the 4 parts individually using edit mode. So say if you like your action bars in the middle of the screen, well, you can just keep the buff and bar tracker. Or if you want pure minimalism, I suppose you could hide your action bars and rely purely on this and your muscle memory. Okay, let's take this for a spin and see how it actually plays. Drilling into the detail, you can see that the bars at the side track inertia and initiative, which are your vital damage windows. Then the cooldown tracker here, well, that tracks your meta duration even when it is triggered by I-beam. So that's honestly kind of neat. Now, it's only focused on the sorts of things that will change your actual decision making, so it does ignore passive things like, say, how much rage fire that you've built up. And what it basically is perfect for playing Havoc out of the box, right? Doing that would be more than doable. And Vengeance 2 is another really solid example.
This is really good. This is perfect for especially somebody getting started with the game as well. Like, this totally brings down the barrier to entry for people. And I always felt like add-ons is a barrier to entry of this game. A lot of times when I've introduced people to WoW, whether it be now or 10 years ago, the first thing you got to explain to them after you tell them, okay, download the game, is go download these 3 or 4 add-ons. Which is sad because a lot of people don't even know how to do that. And a long time ago, if you remember, you had to like download add-ons and put them in specific folders and shit to get them to work properly. Now at least CurseForge does it all itself. But downloading add-ons is a barrier to entry. So if they get this shit straight and it's perfect in the game for what it is, and that's just like an out of the box, version of for each class, it's a great way to allow people to start this game without having to download add-ons.
Of Blizzard's cooldown manager actually working pretty goddamn well. So these are almost perfect blueprints. But for other specs, it clearly needs a ton of work. So Ret Paladin's designer curated list really does miss the mark right away. It's got a bar that shows your crusading strike for really no reason, and then say the duration of wings if talented into Radiant Glory is just not there. Which seems like a very clear oversight.
Yeah, they'll fix that.
More broadly, when we look at the forums, you do see that many specs have got serious issues here, and that's not to...
Yeah, that's one right there. Trinket cooldowns. I was looking for it right now when they were showing it. I didn't see it. So that's a specific one that Blizzard would have to get fixed, and it'd be a harder one because it would depend... The system would have to be able to track which trinket you have equipped and then specifically put up its cooldown, because sometimes you don't have any trinkets. Sometimes you got 2 passive trinkets that have no cooldowns, right? And then other times you have 2 trinkets that both have cooldowns. So that's one that I would like to see added for sure, because that does affect your rotation.
And that's not to mention that it's completely missing some vital things like, say, tracking your unused trinkets. And those are often as important as your class cooldowns. Now, what's cool is, of course, it's Blizzard's UI. So we actually dug into the code. We dug into the code to see how Blizzard have actually built this thing and how it works. And what we found going into the code is that right now it is not designed for items. So if Blizzard wants to do that, there will need to be a little bit of a rethink with the code. The good news is that honestly is not a super hard thing. I mean, they've got Lua developers, they can solve that. Now, it does lack some key layout features. As an example, there's no centered layout. One spillover sticks the icon to the left or the right, which just looks kind of horrible, honestly, especially if you're swapping between specs that have got different numbers of tracked abilities, because, you'll swap specs, then it will swap all of those like bits of your UI. They'll still be anchored in the same location, but they'll be different sizes, which means it will be offset. And, if you like lining things up on a grid perfectly, that will be deeply distressing. But there is good news. Big credit goes to BlackBerry, who is the Blizzard developer, at least taking point in communication.
What is this?
To BlackBerry, who is the Blizzard developer, at least taking point in communication
I
here.
thought he said Dingleberry. Okay.
Because it does seem they're actually on top of it. They've basically been asking people for tons of feedback. They've been responding with planned changes, which is all quite good. Now, it does raise a little bit of a problem with the whole thing. If Blizzard planned this to be an out-of-the-box tool, it needs, in an ideal world, it needs to ship that way.
Yeah.
But if it releases in patch 11.1.5 and players try it, but then go back to their WeakAuras because it's actually missing something they really need, I don't think wings would be missing, but it's a convenient example.
Yeah, Blizzard might want to hold off on this. I know it's supposed to be an 11.1.5 feature, but that patch is supposed to drop in... a little bit over a month away from that thing launching. I don't know if they'll get this thing set up, because he's right. If people's first experience out of the box is not good with this thing, likely they'll go back and download their WeakAuras or just keep them if they didn't uninstall them, and they won't try this again. So Blizzard kind of, I think they need a decently long period of feedback on this to make sure they get it right before they launch it, because it's going to be one of those first impressions thing, right? What's your first impression of it? If it was good, you're going to keep it. If it's not, you're unlikely to. You're going to toggle it off and probably never try it again.
Well, good luck getting anyone to go back into the settings and toggle that thing on again. So, does it need to be perfect? No, but it does need to be good enough to be something that you can reliably use. I do understand shipping it in a minor patch, so that in the next season, with patch 11.2, it will be in a near perfect form. But, you know, first impressions count. Now, using the actual system spans way beyond just first impressions, and it brings me to one of the most missed opportunities for Blizz. Do you remember this? It's the personal resource display. Blizzard added it in Legion, and it felt like it was the future of add-on replacements. I even remember trying to make a more beefed-up version of the personal...
Bro, this game ages people like, oh my god, look at what Bellular used to look like. Oh, man. Yeah. WoW ages people. I've seen videos of me from just like 2 years ago. I've aged 30 years in the last 2 years. It's unbelievable. We all look decrepit.
By using as an anchor in add-ons, I was able to make some pretty cool stuff, but that kind of highlighted a point. Even when it shipped, it didn't do anywhere near what I would want it to do, and since then, Blizzard have not really done anything much with it.
You had a lot of hair,
and resource tracking right under your characters, a really great thing, but then it was basically just abandoned. So Blizzard will need to update this cooldown manager for all 39 specs, all of the time. And that is a fairly monumental task, especially when Blizzard sometimes adds things without really realizing the implications on gameplay or UI. A fantastic example of this is the Fire Mages Feel the Burn throughout Dragonflight. Yeah, you kind of needed UI add-ons and stuff to do that properly. All it takes is one missing buff, and this is rendered useless. People have got to use WeakAuras.
Yeah, he's right.
To look on the bright side, them actually having to update this because it's actually a core of their game, that actually might help with class design in the long run, because now, if a designer is adding something, they'll have to think about what it will do to the actual user interface that Blizzard are responsible for. So, speaking of personal resource display, this could...
summarize, they got to get it right out of the box. If they don't, then it's going to be useless. That's what this is all about.
From a very similar problem, it's only one small part of a complete UI. What this does is it tracks cooldowns, buffs, and some procs. When you take a look at the forum, though, people are asking for more things. Most specifically, people want debuff tracking, and rightly so. You kind of need that for the game. This does not do that, but most class WeakAura packs do actually do that, which basically means a lot of people will still want those WeakAuras. And so you get a feel for the gameplay implication. They'll track the important debuffs on your current target. This way, on single target or when tab targeting around, you can see everything in one place. But if you're using this, you still have to look at your enemy's frame or their nameplates to see really important things like dot durations. That's pretty major for a lot of classes. And
that's another thing Blizzard needs to work on, update nameplates, man. This shit's so old. Everyone has to download Plater, especially, I mean, as a tank, I can't tank without it. So right now, Blizzard, I would say if they're going to focus on anything after they do this shit, is nameplates. Get nameplates fixed, man. It's so ancient. It's completely useless right now in game. You have to have an add-on for it. That's one that I would like to see fixed.
That will force you to split your focus when making decisions like, say, when do you reapply a dot? You're basically looking, I mean, you're trying to solve one problem, but to solve that problem, find out your answer, you need to look at two different bits of UI, which splits your focus, and that doesn't lead to good, smooth gameplay. It also doesn't show important things like, say, your resources, like your Fury bar. It doesn't show you things that are handled by spell alerts, like, these ones, which I think is a bit of a shame. And that does mean you've got 4 places to look at. You've got to look at your own frame, you've got to look at spell alerts, the cooldown manager, and your enemy frame or plate, which is troublesome. And the odd thing is that the personal cooldown manager actually fights with the personal resource display, because if you want to use it for health and power, well, the personal resource display's position changes with camera angles and zoom, which basically means you would need to keep this tracker out of the middle of the screen, right? Because your cooldown manager is going to be where you put it, and the personal resource display will just be slipping and sliding all over the place, potentially under the cooldown manager, meaning you cannot see what the personal resource display is showing, which is not really something that sparks joy. Now, most immediately, Blizzard, come on, take the personal resource display, detach that, put it in edit mode, let us move it. There you go, problem solved, right? That would help a lot. That's one real obvious problem, but there are more. I mean, let's not even get into WoW's default name.
See, that's an easy fix. I'm sure they can do that. The thing is, they just need the time to get the feedback and implement the changes, which is why I think launching this with 11.1.5 is going to be a bit too soon. I don't know if that's enough time to get the feedback they need.
Gameplays being a kind of miserable experience, or just how hard it is to track your own debuffs. Listen, we've got a real problem of new players coming to World of Warcraft and, being bloody confused because the UI does not do a great job of, well, helping to express the game mechanics. And that does make sense. WoW's UI has just been cobbled together with blood, sweat, and tears over years for so long that it's either going to take years to straighten it out piecemeal, or, they just do one really big push and bring us a new unified experience. And unfortunately, that means if you want to complete one and done, solid, covers everything experience, a solid WeakAura pack will still be miles ahead, which is sad.
That
is sad. There is good news. I don't think that is going to be true forever. This is not about being perfect. It is about being good enough.
Yes.
In patch 11.1, as an example, we have better swirlies, better indicators on the ground during our...
The new swirlies are so damn good. They really are. These are absolutely perfect. It's so much better playing the game now with these. You can actually tell where the edge of things is, so you can actually stand just outside of them, minimize the amount of movement you need to put in. These are so good. Great change from Blizzard, and he's right. The new UI doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. I just want them to get to that point before they launch it.
Fights. This is still a major improvement, so piece by piece, it is getting better. This is a good start. Let's reckon with the future. What strikes me the most is that this is a commitment to make the game more user-friendly, and it's very obviously just the first step. As an example, I think back to Holly's post about World of Warcraft in 2025. In that post, she talked about the new player experience. Well, stuff like this, UI
this is what I was talking
UX
about.
changes, that is exactly what World of Warcraft needs most.
Yeah.
In a news episode, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, we saw some data mining fragments, and honestly, I just assumed that this feature was going to be in Midnight. But no, it's in 11.1.5.
Yeah.
That does actually show they are willing to move fairly fast and make this game better, basically as quick as they can. Now, on those next steps, Blizzard...
But this is one thing that I feel like they got to take their time with it. Don't move too fast with it. Because, people are going to give this shit one try only, and if they don't like it, they're moving on. So I think, if I had my way, I would say delay this till 11.2. Honestly, give it a couple months of PTR testing. If not, 5 or 6 months of it. But 1 month, we're going to see if this is good or not.
Have already confirmed that future versions
kind of
this
like doing
will
anal.
allow you to hide things that you do not want to see, so perhaps some filtering,
I guess.
and also to rearrange the order that things appear in. And when we dig into the actual code, add-ons can already remove these things. Actually, whenever this first happened, what did Matt do? He fired up his IDE and he played around with the code of this to see what things he could add or remove to this system. And basically, add-ons can remove things, but they cannot add things, they cannot rearrange things, because that is all handled by Blizzard's internal database.
Okay.
Maybe give us access to that, Blizzard, it would be kind of neat. And what's also neat is that this says the quiet part out loud. Blizzard literally cannot say this, but this is evidence, right? The developers use WeakAuras. That's how they play the game, because that's basically how everyone plays the game, especially
True.
the devs who are in, say, heroic raids or pushing Mythic Plus keys. So it's really not a coincidence that the default layout of this new feature is pretty much exactly the same as the popular WeakAura packs that are out there.
Yeah, of course. Of course, Blizzard's dev team is aware of the most popular add-ons and how they play the game. 100%. So that's why a lot of these things are looking the way they are. Even our new unit frames. You guys remember these and the ability to move them around and put... You guys remember that shit not too long ago was locked up here? Unless you had an add-on, your health bar was up here, your party, your raid, everything. And then the ability to move them down here was really because of WeakAuras. A lot of people were using, or LVUI. A lot of people were, this is the layout people were going with. So when they allowed us to change it up, that was a direct result of that. Blizzard is aware of the best add-ons, which is why I feel like they're going to eventually get this right. All they have to do is watch like some of the best players playing each class, see what they like on their cooldown manager, and then just implement it in the in-game one. I just feel like it's going to take time. That's the one thing, is they need some time to get this right.
They look so similar that it makes it obvious what the new
But they will get it right.
manager does not yet do. And if this is just step one, handling this, well, I think the next step is extremely, extremely obvious. and that's the nameplate revamp. It needs to happen. And if they're already shipping this in 11.15, maybe nameplates will be in 12.0. I
Yeah,
say this because
that's what I was
Plater is
saying.
basically required to play Mythic Plus beyond a basic level.
It is.
And that's because the defaults on our nameplates are so bad at filtering buffs and debuffs that if you want to do well, if you want to see only...
This is ancient, man. I mean, you could go watch Classic WoW. This is the same shit that they had back then. So, I mean, they really need to update this.
Information that is right that you need a custom Plater profile. If the designers are already curating buffs for classes, the next step would be to curate debuffs and to make sure that they show up properly. Vengeance Demon Hunter, as one example, cannot see the duration of Sigil of Flame, even though it offers a huge boost to their parry chance and is important for stagger applications. That's important.
Yeah, sounds
Again,
important.
Plater's insane granular per mob customization will never be beaten by an in-game solution, but this is again about Blizzard getting the default to be good enough instead of what it is right now, which is unusable. But to say this definitely means no weak auras, I think, is not the whole picture. This is class auras, right? For your class. One thing you can do in weak auras. This does not replace the other stuff, and honestly, Blizzard shouldn't really try to replace the other stuff. And for that other stuff, as an example, here's an amazing one. It's called Ultimate Mouse Cursor. Look what it does to your mouse. It's so good for visibility. You can put your casts on there. It's kind of neat. Another example is Tama's Helper, and then you've got the absolutely insane Mythic Raid auras that require full-time developers to create...
Look at this fucking screen. How is this person playing the... I don't understand this. I don't understand this. How people, I guess, really get off on playing, the game at the highest level. But where is this man's screen? He's literally just playing like some kind of weird, I don't know. He's playing World of UI right now. Yeah, not a fan. I've never liked this look at all. I'd rather not be good at the game. To be completely honest with you, I'd rather not be good at the game than play the game like this. I don't know what the fuck. Look how big he made everything. He's got 200 things on his screen right now. He literally has the actual World of Warcraft game right now is taken up only about, like, I would say 49% of his screen. The rest of it is taken up by UI. That's insane. You already got that accomplishment. Say, yeah, not being good at the game. Yeah, spaceship UI. So that's the thing. For me, the in-game stuff just needs to be good enough. I don't need it to be perfect. If you want it to be perfect, then you got to go this route. Blizzard's UI will never be this good and accurate if this is what you want. But for me, I'm not going to be, pushing plus 44 keys, okay? I don't need all this shit. I just need the bare minimum so I can understand what's going on with my tune. And beyond that, let my skill take the lead. But to play like this, oh my God, this makes me want to vomit.
Maintain. If you use any of those things...
And not to mention stream, like if you're streaming the game, who the fuck's going to understand this who doesn't play WoW? I get a lot of people in my chat who are like, hey, I just got into the game, wondering this. If somebody just got into the game and they see this, they're gonna have a seizure. What the hell is going on here? Why is his dot so big?
All of this change kind of changes nothing.
It's
Things
all
like,
these,
say, the effect of health aura,
all these
which
debuffs
is real
and buffs.
useful, or say the alert that fires off when you're targeted by a spell. Those are things that are way too important for the high...
This looks so much cleaner. This is so much better.
End of
I don't care if this is going to stop me from being good. This is what I want to see.
Playing this game. I guess that brings me to the verdict of this WeakAura's killer. We have played at multiple classes. We have literally inspected the code to see how it works. Personally, this is actually enough for me to use it.
Yes.
Whether that'll be the same for you
Agreed.
is up to you in your situation. Look, I think it basically looks great. I do not push keys super hard. I don't mythic raid, right? I just want my heroic ahead of the curve, have some fun with my friends. This is perfectly good. I'm okay with the trade-offs. Yes, it is less customizable. It is less effective, but it looks nicer. It's in keeping with the aesthetic of the rest of the game. Sometimes I don't like flatly shaded sort of future...
I don't either. That's why I don't like LVUI. I like the fantasy look that the game offers. Like I said, give me the little stone griffins on the side of my bars. Give me the talent page that looks like pages out of a book. You know, how they have it, like the scroll that's open and stuff like that. That's what I like, the high fantasy of where I play World of Warcraft because I like fantasy. I like a fantasy universe. I don't need this fucking, grayed out, shaded, perfectly squared off box and all this shit. I don't care about that. I want to be in the game, fully immersed. This shit's just too much. It's too, it's so flat looking and boring.
Futuristic UI looking panels in my fantasy RPG. And for so many people, it's not about the function. It's about the flavor as well and the overall experience. And a part of that is having a UI that looks cohesive.
Yes, 100%.
And that thankfully is what this pulls off. Yes, there are problems on PTR, right? You know, your wings are not properly tracked.
Surprise, it's PTR.
But if they actually shipped this with wings not being properly tracked, I would be surprised. The PTR exists for a reason. I think those things will be fixed because they do seem to be very...
I think they're going to fix all of it. I think it's going to be great towards the end. I just don't know if it's enough time. Got like a month and a week. I think this thing's launching on April 22nd. That gives us a month and a week from today. So a little bit more time, maybe. I hope that... give them the time right now, but I hope that if it's not ready by the time this patch is going to launch, I hope they pull it. I'd rather them do that than launch it broken.
Very obvious and very easily fixable. Most importantly, this is a massive upgrade over the default UI. If you need to optimize for performance, you'll probably never touch this, but that doesn't really matter. What's more important is that this is Blizzard investing resources in player experience.
Yeah.
If I had to give a final verdict, it would basically be this. Good work, Blizzard.
Yes, good. Yeah, good. I agree. And if you're pushing, high-end performance, that's the thing. Blizzard shouldn't cater to the top 1% because the top 1% are always going to download add-ons. That's fine. They are, smart enough to do it and create it. That's part of what they like about WoW. But when we're talking about Greg from accounting and everybody else, no. 99% of the people are just going to enjoy this default UI, and they're going to take it and they're going to use it. And it's going to make them better at the game because guess what? Those people probably didn't have the WeakAura downloaded before anyways. So this is going to be actually a big-time upgrade for them. This is going to be great. And like I said, Greg from accounting, he's not tracking 460 WeakAuras. Greg from accounting is hiding in his basement while his abusive wife is sleeping and his kids are out spending his money. He's just downstairs trying to load up the game as quickly as possible, run his 2 delves, and go to bed before his wife realizes that, he's actually enjoying himself, right? Because she doesn't like him to have any pleasure in his life. So he's got to quickly sneak that shit in and out. So for him, this is going to be a great update. It's actually going to make him better at the game. So that's a great thing. It's going to raise the floor, trust me, for a lot of players in this game. And that's what Blizzard should worry about. Worry about the 99%ers, not the ones.
Basically be this. Good work, Blizzard. This is a big commitment, and the reason why I'm pleased is because it is a big commitment and you've tried to do it anyway. You will have to make this work for every spec in the game, you'll have to update it with every single patch, and you will have to add more features and more customization. Otherwise, it will end up just like the personal resource display, a system that is neat, a system that I would love to use, but one that I do not trust enough to use. And on that, hey, take the personal resource display and at least throw that sucker in edit mode and polish it up a little bit.
I agree, that'd be a great change.
Usable, and maybe it will be a good thing in tandem with this feature. Okay, a big upgrade to our UI. There is so much more coming from us on patch 11.1.5, but you should really watch this next because if you want to know what patch 11.2 basically is going to be and how we get there and how it's basically a repeat of the end of the Legion expansion, but with a bit of a cool twist, well, watch this video next.
Wonderful. Yeah, great stuff. I'm excited for what this thing's bringing. I am. And you know what I don't use right now? WeakAuras to track all that shit. I go with the bare minimum. Usually, I use Plater for a lot of this tracking stuff. So this thing added in the game would be a big boom for me and a lot of players I know who play the game right now. Perfect.